Hello, my Stampin' Piece friends. Welcome to my Stampin' Piece studio. Facebook is still a little wonky, so I'm not going to greet you face on, but I'm happy that you're here. Today's demonstration is the April One Sheet Wonder. And the first thing I want to do is show you the products that I'm using today. And of course, if you don't have these products, you can use any of the papers, cardstocks, colors, stamp sets that you have, okay? So, first of all, this is the designer series paper called Everyday Happiness. There are 3 sheets, which is a little bit different. Usually we get 6 sheets, 2 of each. In this pack, you get 3 different sheets, 3 designs, and 4 sheets of each. So if you want to make a lot of cards that coordinate or are very similar in the same color palette, this is great for that. If you want to do scrapbooking, this would be great because you get several pieces that you can spread out through your page layouts. And this came out, you will find it online, but it came out with our January scrapbook workshop kits. So you might want to take a look and see what the coordinating scrapbook kit is as well. Okay, so you can see it uses Wild Wheat, Lost Lagoon. There is some, it just escaped me. Gray granite. And then it says on the packaging Mossy Meadow, but I think of this as more of Pretty Peacock. So this is the piece of designer series paper I'll be using today. And I have chosen to use the 3 colors, Lost Lagoon, Pretty Peacock, and Wild Wheat. Now, Wild Wheat is one of those outgoing in colors, and I did see just the other day that the cardstock of the Wild Wheat has been retired or discontinued. The inventory has been depleted. You can choose, this is kind of a goldy color, so you might use some gold metallic paper, or you can pull in the gray granite that you see in the leaves. My sentiments that you'll see on my cards at the end of the demonstration are from the Something Fancy bundle, and I even use a few of those dies that go with it. And then my embellishment today is the gold textured adhesive dots and some of the Wild Wheat, what is this called? Wild Wheat rustic striped ribbon. And it says rustic, so I think of kind of hard, but it's really, really soft and easy to work with. And it has kind of a mesh look to it. All right, so that's all the products. Again, I'm using a sheet of paper from the Everyday Happiness designer series paperback. Now, you know that with One Sheet Wonders, the most important thing is the cutting of our paper. So let me show you that right now. I'm going to start by cutting at 3 inches. I'm starting with a 12 by 12 piece. Cut at 3 inches. And then I'm going to cut the remainder in half at 4.5 inches. So now I have 2 strips that measure 4.5 by 12 inches and 1 that measures 3 by 12 inches. Okay, I'm going to turn this 3-inch strip to the horizontal position and cut at 3-inch increments. And this will give me 4 squares. Now, this paper that I'm using is not directional, so it doesn't really matter. If you're using directional paper, though, you would want to turn these pieces back to their original position. The reason for that is the card sketches that I have designed for this One Sheet Wonder would have them in this position. Now, I'm going to show you 4 different ways to use these 3x3 squares, okay? And I think I will just, well, I'll go ahead and cut them now, and then we'll do the 4.5 inch strips. So the first square, I'm going to leave as 3x3. I'm not going to cut it at all. The second one, I'm going to cut in half at 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to turn those pieces and cut those each at 1.5 inches. So I'm basically cutting that 3x3 square in half in each direction. And again, when I lay these out for my cards, I do want to make sure that they fit together like a puzzle, because you know I'm just kind of funny like that. I just think it looks better, gives you a cleaner, more polished look. And let's see, where does that one go? No, maybe it was that one. Oh, it's this. Okay, so now I'm going to lay out those pieces. That's my second square. And again, when I'm working on a One Sheet Wonder, I like to lay out my pieces in the same order that I'm cutting them. Now for my third 3x3 square, I'm going to cut at 1 inch and then 1 inch again to get 3 1-inch by 3-inch pieces of that Everyday Happiness square. The next piece is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to cut at 1 1/4 inches, then 1 inch, and then my last piece will be 3 1/4 inch wide, and they're all 3 inches. So there I've shown you 4 different ways to cut the 3x3 square. Therefore, I will show you coordinating card sketches for each of those. If you don't want to do all the different ones, you could pick and choose to do maybe just 1 or 2 of those designs, or you might choose to do all 4, okay? But I wanted to give you some options. Now, we have these 2 4.5 by 12-inch pieces. I'm going to stack mine because I am using the Stampin' Up paper trimmer, and it will cut 2 sheets of designer series paper at once. If you're not cutting 2 sheets at once, or you have a different paper trimmer that you're not sure it will cut the 2 pieces at the same time, go ahead and cut them individually. But these are going to be cut, both going to be cut the same way. So with them in the horizontal position, I'm cutting at 4.5 by 3 3/4. Put that there. And then I'm going to cut at, make sure they're even, 5 1/4 inches. And then I'll be left with 4.5 by 3 for the last pieces. Now, 2 of these I'm going to cut. So I'm going to take these 2 4.5 by 3 3/4 pieces. That's from the top of each of the 4.5 by 12 sheets or strips. And I'm going to cut each of these at 3 inches. Okay. So I'll have a large, whoops, come on. A large and a small piece, and a large and a small piece for 2 more cards. The pieces that are 4.5 by 5 1/4 inches, I want to cut off 1/2 inch on the right side. Or you could say I'm cutting at 4 inches from the left. So I'm lining that up at 4 inches, cutting, and then I have these 1/2 inch strips. And again, a large and a small will be used for each of those squares. And then I'm not going to do anything with the 4.5 by 3 inch pieces. So now let's make some cards. And I don't think I told you, but this One Sheet Wonder uses, let me think, 7 different card sketches to make 10 cards, but they're all very easy, okay? So for this first one, I'm starting off with a pretty peacock card base, standard size, 8.5 by 5.25, or 5.5, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25 down the middle. And then I've got a piece of Lost Lagoon, and this measures 3.25 inches by 4.5. 3.25 by 4.5. And I'm taking that very first 3 by 3 square and I'm adhering it to the top of this piece of Lost Lagoon. And as I'm adhering it, I'm looking at these corners to make sure that I have even spacing all around, okay? Now, before I adhere it to my Wild Wheat cardstock, I want to stamp a sentiment here, but I want to make sure that it's kind of positioned in the middle. I'm not too high or not too low. And I could do it on a piece of scrap paper and die cut it, but I'm going to do this. So here's a trick to show you, help you get something centered if it fits within a die, but you're not die cutting it. Does that make sense? Okay, so I have With Deepest Sympathy, which does come from the Something Fancy bundle, just like my die does. And now I know I'm going to stamp on scrap paper first. See if I can stamp straight. Yeah, that looks good. And so now my goal is to stamp it right here in the middle. Just like that. Perfect. Now, here's a fun tip. Just because I like this design with that sentiment right there, if I would mess up, guess what I would do? I would stamp this on Lost Lagoon scrap and then die cut it, and it would fit right over and fit right over the top, and nobody would even know I made a mistake underneath. They would think it was planned that way. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're stamping, that, you know, if you make a mistake, if you're stamping on a single piece of cardstock and you're not die cutting or lifting it up, but you make a mistake, then go ahead and stamp it again and die cut it, pop it up. Nobody's any wiser. You're the only one that would know. Okay, let me get that out of the way. And then I'm going to adhere my layers to a piece of Wild Wheat that measures 3 3/8 inches by 4 5/8. I just wanted a little border of that Wild Wheat. And then I'm going to adhere this to the center of my card front. Any embellishing I'll do, well, I guess I could do that as we go. Not every card is embellished. Okay, so I'm going to just add some of these gold textured dots. Gold texture dots. And I'm just going to do 3 small ones that will kind of frame or draw attention to that sentiment, so it doesn't look like it's there all alone. Alrighty. So that's card number 1, or card A, I should say. And then card number 2, I'm going to be using those 4 1.5-inch squares that I cut from the second 3x3 square. Shannon is asking, will I be showing the dimensions? Shannon, for my monthly one-sheet wonders, what I do is the video or demonstration. You get all of the dimensions in this video, along with all the supplies I'm using. And then if you would like the actual one-sheet wonder template and card sketches with directions for all these cards, you can get it one of 2 ways. You can either place a $50 order with me in the month of April, and you get it free. I would email it to you. Or you can purchase just the PDF tutorial for $18 at stampinpeace.com, and it would include your supply list, color photos, the one-sheet wonder template, a template for each of the card sketches, and then actual directions for each of the cards I make. Okay, so one-sheet wonders, the monthly one-sheet wonders, I do a little bit differently. Okay, all right, so now I've got a piece of wild wheat that measures, let me double check, 3 1/4 inches by 3 1/4, and Pretty Peacock that measures 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. I'm just going to layer these together. And then I have a piece of Lost Lagoon that measures 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to add that to the front of my Pretty Peacock card base. Now, before I add my layers, I'm going to add these 4 1.5-inch squares, okay? Shannon, thank you, and welcome, as it's your first time. Shannon, I should also say, since it's your first time, and maybe others as well, that you can find all of my videos on YouTube at Stampin' Piece with Mary Knabe. And also another good resource is my blog, stampinpeace.com. And you will find lots and lots of inspiration and projects, etc. in both of those places. Now notice that I'm putting a puddle of glue in the center of each of those squares. That is so that I can move them around easily to get things to line up and have even spacing around and between the pieces. Okay. And once that looks pretty good to me, scoot that over a bit. Then what I like to do is drop a silicone craft sheet right on the top. Just literally drop it. And then press down with a flat hand. That way, you'll be getting all of these to adhere down. The glue will spread out, okay? But the pieces don't slide around. Okay, then, put this away. I'm going to add these layers to my card front. And you can put it up, down, wherever. I've decided for this layout, I want it right in the middle. And then I have stamped my sentiment and die cut it with the Something Fancy bundle. And I'm popping that sentiment up right in the center. Okay. And no embellishments on that one, but you could add them if you like. I've got my cheat sheet with my dimensions over there, so I need to switch pages. Okay, now for card sketch C, got all my pieces here. I'm going to make a happy birthday card. And I'll be using my 3 1-inch by 3-inch pieces. And again, I like them to be laid out so that they fit together like a puzzle. Okay. Again, they don't have to, but I think it looks a little bit nicer. Pat, you are a member of my Mary Stampers team. So you will get access to the PDF tutorial free on our team Facebook group. Okay. So that's a little something for all of you to know if you are interested in joining with me. One of the perks I give to all of my team members is they get all of my PDF tutorials for the One Sheet Wonders and my classes to go that I do nearly every month, usually 2 a month. You get that free in our team Facebook group. Okay, so I've added a piece of Pretty Peacock cardstock that measures 5.5 by 2 1/4 inches. 5.5 by 2 1/4 inches. And then I have this piece of Lost Lagoon that measures 4.5 by 1 1/4. And I'm just going to put that right in the center of that Pretty Peacock piece. Okay. Now I have this piece of Wild Wheat that measures 3.5 by 3 1/4 inches. 3.5 by 3 1/4. Again, I'm going to use my multi-purpose glue for these strips, kind of being generous with that glue, but kind of having it like more of a puddle or a hefty stream of glue. Usually with this glue, I tell you, a little goes a long way. A dot does a lot, right? But when you have pieces that you may need to move around to ensure that you have good spacing in and around them, then I like to use that glue a little more generously so I can slide them as I need to. Whoops. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Maybe. And again, I'm going to do the same thing with my silicone craft sheet. If you don't have one of these, I strongly suggest you get one because I use it for so many different things. This is just one way I use my silicone craft sheet. I even keep one in my kitchen because I don't know if it's age or I have carpal tunnel or an arthritis in my hands, but I have a very hard time opening jars anymore. So I keep one of these upstairs in my kitchen drawer so that I can put it over a jar lid or a bottle top if I need a little help opening. Just a little FYI. And then I'm going to add these layers right to the center of the card front. I've stamped and die cut Happy Birthday using the Something Fancy bundle. And I'm just going to put this right here in the center. I'm going to use 2 large embellishments. Just like that. That's a little high. Okay, there is card sketch C. Card Sketch D is very similar, but different enough. So again, giving you some more variation. My Pretty Peacock strip is again 5.5 by 2.25 inches, and I'm putting it right across the center of my card front. Again, I have a piece of wild wheat that measures 3.5 by 3.25. So these pieces are the same colors and measurements as the previous card, okay? Now this is where I cut my strips a little bit differently. 1.25, 1 inch and 3/4 inch wide by 3. So this is my 4th 3 by 3 square cut from the One Sheet Wonder. Again, I'm going to use that multi-purpose glue rather generously. Also, when I do things in threes, like strips like this in threes, set of 3, I like to adhere the left, right, and then middle. Because then the center one, I literally am centering between the other 2. And then I can slide and adjust my pieces if I need to. Okay, I think that looks good. Again, use my silicone craft sheet, just drop it on top and press down with a flat hand. Okay, pressing down with a flat hand. Oops, I see a little glue seeping out there. Okay, and now I'm going to add these layers to my card front. Now I could put this down right in the center, just like the last card, but instead I'm offering you another variation, and I'm going to adhere it towards the left side. And when I adhere it, I'm really looking at the top, the left, and the bottom for even spacing. Then I've got this sentiment, grateful for the everyday magic of you. I'm going to adhere that here. Now I could adhere it over here and put the embellishment here, but I'm decided I'm going to center this sentiment on my square. Well, it's not quite square now, is it? On top of those strips. And then I'm going to add some of these gold textured dots. I'm going to use 1 medium and 2 of the small. Okay. So that would be card D, Card Sketch D. And now I don't know if I said this when I advertised. There are actually 2 fun folds in this group of 10 cards. Okay. So the next one is one of those fun folds. And we're going to make 2 of these cards. I've got all these pieces. And for this fun fold card, get my cheat sheet here so I get the measurements correct. I'm starting with a piece of cardstock that is 4.25 inches by 11 inches, okay? Or 11 inch by 4.25. And then I scored at 3.5 inches and 9 inches. Okay, let me go over that one more time. 11 inches by 4.25. And then I scored on the long side at 3.5 inches and 9 inches. And then I folded each of those flaps to the inside, and I do want my large flap on the left and my small flap on the right. On the inside is white that measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches. So when the card is finished and closed, it will be 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 inches, a standard size. Okay. And, oops. I've got pieces of wild wheat cut out, and these pieces are, let me double check, 3 1/4 by 4 inches, 3 1/4 by 4, and the strips are 1 3/4 by 4 inches. So I'm going to add now the DSP that we cut from the One Sheet Wonder. Doing these One Sheet Wonders is such a favorite thing of mine. I really enjoy the designing process and how it all comes together. But every month I worry like, oh, am I going to be able to come up with another one? And I'm like, but I do. I just keep playing around with sizes and measurements and card sketches, things like that. And I love that the One Sheet Wonder template and the card sketches can be used with any designer series papers and stamp sets. Any colors. I mean, you do you. If you like these, sure, by all means, make them just the same. But if you don't have the same supplies, no worries. You can use what you have. Or you can use different papers and sentiments based on your needs. Maybe there's something more appropriate to, you want to make a bunch of baby cards or sympathy cards or holiday cards. You can use the same templates, the same card sketches, and all the same directions and measurements, and have something unique. All right, so let's add these layers to our card front. And I got a little crazy this month, giving you 2 fun folds, which was fun for me to do. So the larger layers, of course, would be on the larger flap. Notice that when I'm adhering these, I am still keeping the, keeping them in the order that I cut those pieces in, so that they do fit together like a puzzle. Okay, see that? And again, doing that just makes it a little bit neater, cleaner, more professional looking. And I think if you're spending time making something handmade, give it the extra few seconds. Give it that special touch by paying attention to details. I used to sew a lot, some for myself, a lot for my girls when they were young, making them dresses and shorts and all kinds of things. And I always made sure, like if I was doing plaids, that they matched up at the seams, that sort of thing, or if it was an image, that it matched up like it should. So now when I look for clothes, I find myself looking at the seams because I want to know that things are matched up. I guess I'm just one of those matchy-matchy people. Okay, so, and I love this sentiment. I didn't forget your birthday. I'm just stretching out the celebration. How's that for a belated birthday message? Now I want to center this on my card front, but I still want it to be able to open. So I've only put adhesive dimensionals. Actually, I'm going to add one more. I'm keeping those dimensionals to the left side. but still centering it. Because doing that, I know my card's still going to open easily. Did you see what I did? Somebody probably caught that, I'm sure. I took off one adhesive backing, but not the other two. Okay, and again, I'm going to add some of the gold textured dots. I'm going to put all mediums on this one. I always tend to use up my small embellishments first, so sometimes I gotta go outside the box. Kathy, it's from the same bundle, Something Fancy stamp set with the Something Fancy die. So all of the sentiments you see today are from Something Fancy bundle. How many of you have ever visited my YouTube channel? If you have, I hope you love it. Okay. I don't know why I'm having such trouble with this third one. It's sticking everywhere but except where I want it to. There. If you have not visited my YouTube channel, I would love it if you did. It's called Stampin' Peace, Stampin' P-E-A-C-E, Stampin' Peace with Mary Knabe. That's where all my videos go. That's sort of like the archives, we'll call it. The collection of all my videos. And I would love it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. That really helps me tremendously. Okay, I've got 2 more card bases that are Pretty Peacock, and these started out being the 4.5 by 5.25 inch pieces, and we cut a 1/2 inch off each. So these large pieces are that standard size now, 4 inches by 5.25. And then those 1/2 inch strips of DSP, I'm going to layer with Pretty Peacock and Wild Wheat. Make sure I have the right sizes here. Okay, seems like something is not cut correctly here, and I bet it's these. Let me look. Oh, yeah, I think it's that. Okay, that's all right. I will cut them. Okay, so we have 1/2 inch pieces of DSP. I'm using the reverse side. If you want to use the same side, go ahead, okay? But I'm going to use the reverse side, so I'm going to add some of my glue to the 1/2 inch strip, and I'm going to add it to a strip of Pretty Peacock that measures 3/4 inch by 5.5 inches. And it doesn't matter. I mean, the back side of this paper is, you know, it is what it is, right? So your strips, when you flip them over, aren't necessarily going to match, okay? And that is quite all right. It is perfectly fine. Again, your 1/2 inch strip is being centered on 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4 inch of Pretty Peacock. Did I say, I'm going to clarify because I think I might have said 5 1/2 there. So it's 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4. And then each of these strips, and I need to recut those. I hope this is long. Nope, that's not long enough. So each of the wild wheat pieces will be 5 1/4 by 7/8 of an inch. I'm going to use the right side to measure that 7/8. So just a tiny bit wider than the 3/4 inch strips. Add some adhesive to the back of the layers, and then onto the wild wheat strip. Same thing for the next set of strips. And then the layers will be added to each of the card fronts. And I'm just going to make it, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch from the left fold, left side. Just whatever looks good to you. You could even put it right down the center if you wanted. All right, and then lastly, I'm going to add my sentiment. Again, may the good you do come back to you, is from, along with the die, is from Something Fancy stamp set. And this is where I use that wild wheat rustic ribbon. Super pretty. The detailing of it is so pretty, and it's fine enough that it's really, really easy to use, easy to make a bow, and you don't get a lot of bulk from that bow. So no worries about mailing. Again, you can have this a pie if you want. I'm putting it probably just about center, a little bit above center, I'll say. And add an angle, I think adds a little interest to that card. So what's a very basic card just gets a little more interest because of the shape of the die, the angle, the bow, okay? Just small little things. And for our final card, we're going to make 2. And for the final card, it is once again a fun fold. So I've got my card bases ready, and I'm giving you 2 variations of the same card, okay? Becky, I'm using Something Fancy stamp set and dies for all of the cards. All right, so here my card base is 4 1/4 by 8 1/4 inches, 4 1/4 by 8 1/4, and then you score at 2 3/4 inches, or the other way, you scored at 5 1/2. Okay, so this front flap is 4 1/4 by 2 3/4. 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. Now on one of these card bases, I put white, just that standard like we always do, 5 1/4 by 4 inches. To add a little variation and show you something a little bit different, I actually pulled another piece of DSP from that same pack, but not the same sheet I've been using for the One Sheet Wonder. Okay, it's a different sheet coordinating DSP. And this can be my background. Okay. And if that's the case, then you're going to need some white in the center. And I'm going to explain more about this, how to size it, that sort of thing in just a bit. So now I have to put my layers together. So these pieces of Pretty Peacock measure 2 5/8 by 4 inches. 2 5/8 by 4 inches. Okay. And when I adhered these to that front flap of my fun fold, I'm doing it so that the right edge of the Pretty Peacock cardstock lines up with the right edge of that flap. You see that? Okay, those edges line up, but then I still have even spacing on the other 3 sides. So again, this piece is 2 5/8 inches by 4. Lining up those edges. Okay. Now the 4 1/2 by 3 inch pieces of DSP that I've cut from my One Sheet Wonder will then be layered onto my Wild Wheat cardstock, which measures 4 3/4 inches by 3 1/2. 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. Okay, now it's time to add these to our card base. When I add them, I'm trying to get these layers centered right in the middle of my card base. So I'm looking at those Lost Lagoon edges. And the other thing is I want to make sure that when I adhere these layers, I'm only putting adhesive on the left side. And here's a trick. I'm going to put adhesive on this near the edge of the flap, and I'm going to put adhesive on the left side of this. So now when I go down, where's my adhesive? It's here and it's here. Okay, doing this ensures that I'm not going to have adhesive anywhere I don't want it. And I think that looks pretty well centered. And I'll do the same for the other. So again, I want adhesive here and here. The outside edge of the flap and the left edge of the layers. And centering that on the card base. That looks pretty good, I think. I'm going to add my sentiments now. Again, this is the sentiment for belated birthday celebrations, and I'm just adding it right to the center. I didn't add any embellishments to this card. You could play around with this too, where you want to put your sentiment. I'm just putting it right in the middle. but I think this would be another good spot. Okay. And depending on what stamp set, what sentiment you're using, that might dictate where you place your sentiment. Okay. Now, on this one, again, we said we need a place to write. Okay. So what I've done is cut a piece of white that is the same size as my DSP, 4.5 by 3 inches. Okay. I could have made it the same size as my wild wheat, but I didn't because I'm going to put this in the center. If I made it the same size as this larger piece, the wild wheat piece, I would have to be spot on. If I weren't spot on in the middle, it would be showing just a little bit or maybe sticking out somewhere. I don't want that to happen. So I've cut it the same size as the DSP, the smaller of the two layers. I'm going to add some adhesive. And you can do this one of two ways. You can just trust yourself and center it on the DSP, or you can do something like this. We know this is a wee bit smaller than the wild wheat, so I could place it here so that I have equal margins around the three sides, and then just hold that in place, fold over the back side, and press down. And voila! It's like magic, right there where you want it. And none of that white shows from the outside. Okay. All right, my friends, let's take one last look at all of the cards made with this April One Sheet Wonder. So here's with deepest sympathy, thank you, happy birthday, and grateful for the magic of you. So those were the 4 squares, 4 3x3 squares cut from that first column of the 12x12 DSP. Then I had 2 columns that measured 4.5 inches wide by 12 inches long. I took the 4.5 inch by 3 3/4 inch piece, cut it 3 inches to get these 2 pieces. Okay. Next I had the 4.5 by 5 1/4 inch pieces. I cut a 1/2 inch off the right side and layered that onto strips of cardstock. And then for this fun fold, I simply used the 4.5 by 3 inch pieces that were cut from the bottom. And I did show you a variation here of using DSP with white or just all white. If you're using all white, I would kind of think about just making sure that your writing stays within here, because I think if you start writing across the whole thing and you've got some writing that sticks out when it's closed, you might be disappointed, okay? So you could even do something like, I don't have a pencil handy, but you could even do something like just very lightly make a few pencil marks, and that will help you know where to keep your writing. And then you can erase those real light pencil marks afterwards. Okay. Vesta, I'm so glad you like my One Sheet Wonders. Okay. Does anybody already have this paper? This was one I wasn't sure about, but boy, when I got it, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And probably not a color combination I would have thought of with the wild wheat. Keep in mind that since I've designed and created all these cards, the wild wheat cardstock is now depleted. It's a retiring color, so it's out of stock. But you may have some already. If you don't, you can substitute the wild wheat for another color. And I would suggest either like the gold metallic, I think would work, because I think that wild wheat does give off a gold look to it. Or you could use the gray granite. Or you could choose to do just a combination of the Pretty Peacock and Lost Lagoon and not have a third color, or make white be your third color, okay? But I hope you have enjoyed this demonstration of my April 12 by 12 one-sheet wonder. Just as a reminder, all of the supplies and measurements that you need for all of these cards, for cutting the 12 by 12 DSP, is in this video already. I've given you everything you need to recreate these cards using that one-sheet wonder, in addition to showing you how to cut the DSP, right? If you're like me and you like to have a download of it, or something you want to be able to print and keep for future reference, there are 2 ways you can get the PDF tutorial. You can place a $50 Stampin' Up! Order with me, that's before shipping and tax, in this month of April. And if you've already placed an order with me this month of April, I sent you the PDF this morning. Okay, so I do it retroactively. So it's the first of the month to the last day of the month. $50 order before shipping and tax gets you the PDF tutorial for free, or you can purchase it in my website, stampinpeace.com. You simply click shop in the pink menu bar, and then you go to the bottom of the drop-down menu and click PDF tutorials, okay? And there's like 150 PDF tutorials, so you can either search by name, Everyday Happiness, or you can click through the page numbers at the bottom. And right offhand, I don't remember what page this is on, but it begins with an E, Everyday Happiness. So I don't really remember, though. I just lost it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, but I'm sure you'll find it. Everyday Happiness one-sheet wonder for April 2025. And also, if you're wondering what exactly is in that PDF tutorial, you will get a supply list, color photos of all of the cards. You'll get the one-sheet wonder template. My daughter Andrea does a great job of making the templates for us, and the directions for how to cut that 12 by 12 sheet based on the template. And you'll also get all of the different card sketches with the measurements. The only thing we don't include in those card sketches is the sentiments, because that will depend on what stamp set you're using, okay? But then after that, you're going to get instructions to make all of these cards. All righty? All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me on this Monday. I know it's not my usual day, but I'm glad that we were able to connect. Tomorrow, April 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be doing another Facebook Live, and I'm actually going to be showing you the card I made this weekend for my niece's bridal shower. I just thought it was so beautiful, and I was so proud of myself, and I got to thinking last night, oh, I should have taken a picture of that. And I thought, oh, I can remember. I do remember, but I want to show you right away so I don't forget. So that's what I will show you tomorrow, and I think you're going to love it. So hope you'll join me then. If you have not visited me on YouTube, Stampin' Peace with Mary Knabe, please do so, and I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a great evening, everybody.